Welcome to the Weekly Grind podcast. I'm your host, Keith Fabbri, with my co-host, Doctortoddlee. And tonight, we have with us the owner of Troponin Nutrition and MuscleMentor.net, Justin Harris. Justin, welcome.
Thank you.
And then we have also with us, last minute, but I'm glad we got him on, Ben Pollack.
Hey, thanks.
How you doing, man? All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about the myoplasmic ebook that you have in that program, because that's new, and I think people should probably hear about it and stuff, because it seems like it's a pretty good program. We can probably touch on the differences between that and your former programs that you have that you're still for sale on Troponin Nutrition. So let's get into that first. Let's start with the myoplasmic and how it came about.
Myoplasmic, it's a full subscription website. Mm-hmm. The flagship of the site is that each month you get a training program and a diet program, at least one. Okay. Every month so far we've done more than one, and this month we've done like 12. But the whole it's built around the idea of a program called the Myoplasmic Growth Protocol, which is kind of a power building protocol that's kind of grown from power bodybuilding, which is on my site, and then critical mass, which is kind of power bodybuilding 2.0.
Yep.
And we have phases of the Myoplasmic Growth Protocol. But in addition to that, and so when you sign up, your fee is what you're already paying for a training program. Then you get a diet program on top of it. And it's customized that you can get for being generalized, but it has formulas that adjust to your weight. And then on top of that, you get a full membership site and access to a private Facebook group. My Own Members is our Facebook group.
Cool.
And then, so it's got everything that other member sites do, tons of videos, tons of articles, tons of content, our training logs, ton of training tutorials, ebooks included. And then the big thing is you get the training programs and the diet programs on top of that.
Okay, cool. That sounds great. So it's a lot like John Meadows' site, only the difference is that you actually get the program sent to you for the price. You don't have to buy separate programs.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Ouch.
Where did the idea for this come from?
Well, we had been kind of working with the idea of myoplasmic growth protocol. And where myoplasmic comes from is there's two main types of hypertrophy. Myofibrillar growth, which is the actual contractile tissue growth, and sarcoplasmic growth, which is really the larger portion of the growth, but that's everything else that can grow to make the muscle larger. And so we were trying to find a way to combine that optimally. And the first attempt was kind of my power bodybuilding, and then Ben had done power building programs as well. And so that's where we kind of hit it off. And then my second attempt was critical mass, which was I tried to build on that. And then we got to talking, and I went to Virginia to train with him for a little bit. And we were kind of working out the kinks, and that's where we got the Myoplasmic Growth Protocol. And that's grown into 3 phases, where phase 1 is kind of, not beginner by any means, but it's an earlier version of a power building program. Phase 2 is a much more advanced program. And then phase 3 is the most advanced and the newest, and that's kind of what Ben's been doing in his to get his rapid growth this year.
Yeah. I've noticed that from in the last year that Ben, you've grown a lot. I've seen with the beginning of some of the videos and stuff that Justin, when you guys were posting, and then all of a sudden now where you're at now sitting in front of me, it's been a huge amount of growth.
80 pounds almost.
184 to 260, almost, close to 80.
Wow.
I might hit 80 before we start.
So how much do you weigh right now then?
So right now, we're pretty sure my scale is light. I just weighed in at 252. But we're thinking it's probably at least 3 or 4 pounds light. Because before I left for Michigan, which was 10 days ago, I was weighing in. On this time, I would have been 255 to 259, depending on the day.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Keith.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me, but I can't see you or Ben. I see Justin and his shoulders.
Yeah.
But is there...
I'm in the corner, but it's recording off of mine anyway, so it'll be fine. Everybody's going to be
You
seeing.
See Ben on yours?
I see everybody.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure Ben was in the frame.
Yeah, you're good. I see everybody, so we're good. It's coming off of mine, so they're going to see just small little me, which is fine. They don't need to see my ugly face on the fucking screen. So the myoplasmic, explain to me the differences between the myoplasmic and say like critical mass, which has been around for a while. I mean, I think pretty sure we've all tried critical mass at one point, or I know Todd's done it. I've done bits and pieces of it over the years. What's the differences between the two?
Primarily, well, the first difference is with phase one is critical mass focuses almost exclusively on PRs.
Yes.
Progressive overload. With some sarcoplasmic traditional bodybuilding work, the phase one of critical mass takes that and kind of it books more of the hypertrophy work in, and then phase two actually specifies there's two separate done in combined with each other, but there's progressive overload sets where you focus progressive overload. Given sections of making sure you're actually working the intended muscle,
yes.
And then pure sarcoplasmic sets, where the approach to the set is different than the progressive overload. It's focused entirely on stimulating sarcoplasmic growth, and then phase three.
For phase three I was really struggling, right, because Justin originally had me training with the critical mass program, and if you guys are familiar with it, you know that it calls for PR in certain movements every day, and I was telling.
And Ben's, for people who might not know, Ben's an all-time world record holder at 198 pounds. So at this point, it's difficult for him to continually progress in weight when he's
already that strong, right?
So, like, Justin, how am I supposed to do? Like, I can't do 590 for 8 every day. Like, I could do that maybe once a year, and then to progress. So phase three kind of takes that into account. At a certain point, you do reach a point where kind of your myofibril potential is more or less maxed out. Maybe not maxed out isn't the right term, but it's just you're getting less bang for your buck there than you would.
Yeah, it's plateau.
Right. And so instead of having those PR sets, what would be a PR set in phase three is instead based on autoregulation. So on the days that you do feel really good, it does have parameters in there that allow you to push for a PR. But on most days, you're going to use some type of other modified volume program where you do kind of like a heavy set. So for me, I was going to go for a PR on deadlifts 2 days ago. I get 2 reps in the set, all the clips fall off, the weights go over, I'm pissed off. So I just do my basic work, right, which is 675 for 5, and then I'll do back off sets until I hit a certain percentage of fatigue where I feel like 635 is part of 675. I'll stop now. I'm accumulating volume. I'm still getting good work in, but I'm not totally wiping myself out so that I can train the next day as well.
And I think kind of if you could put it as kind of one general sum is the problem with progressive overload training is what do you do when you only have a couple max sets to hit PRs on to stimulate growth and you're not feeling good that day? That's the problem with progressive overload. The problem with volume training is how do you know you're progressing? You can't continually add volume for infinity. How do you know you're progressing just by volume? And so we try to compact that to make a way where there's metrics to track your progressive overload when you're fired up and able to hit those new numbers, and then there's ways to progress with your volume and the sarcoplasmic growth when the converse happens and you're not fired up you're not able to hit those full-on max sets because you don't have those 1 in a million strength days every workout.
No,
and I think.
So basically what it sounds like is, and it's like a theory that I've always had, is that once you get to the point where you're so fucking strong and it's dangerous now from an injury standpoint to continue to try to progress heavier than what you are, and you don't have that ability to like have that kind of strength on a daily basis or an every other day basis or whatever it is, that we're adding the volume, we're doing just heavy enough to keep the muscle stimulated so it stays that size, but we're focusing more on the sarcoplasmic expansion of the muscle cell by using those back off sets and those high rep, high volume sets to really push amino acids and push glucose into the muscle.
Yep.
Okay.
I like this.
So as somebody who was doing the critical mass, I started critical mass with Justin in August, and we pretty much tried to push the food as much as possible. Food wasn't really growing. Like I wasn't seeming to get a bigger stomach or a greater size intestines, but I was getting stronger and I was growing in strength for a while. And then it got to the point where I just wasn't getting much stronger, but that's when I started getting bigger around January. And the first time I made any real strength gains in a while was yesterday with my back routine. So despite switching from a gym to a basement, I was still able to make some major strength gains using the critical mass. So for me and other people who've been using critical mass, how would we transition? Obviously, we get the myoplasmic subscription to the pay site. We get the programs. Where would somebody who's been used to doing the critical mass, what phase would one enter into?
Phase two. Phase two is sort of a more advanced critical mass. Phase two takes into account the issues like you had where with the strength plateaus that still allow you to you're still pushing for the PRs, but it offers more variety and ways to get PRs. It's not just getting stronger in one set. There's ways to push a PR. There's like 3-set cluster PRs where if you have 3 sets to get, and so and then there's also additional direct sarcoplasmic work that's sort of implicit in in critical mass, but it's more defined and more organized in the phase two.
Okay. So you mentioned the 3-set cluster PR. So for instance, I was doing 415 bent rows in the Smith for 5, got to 6, got to 7, because critical mass has 5 to 7 as your PR range. And although bent rows is not one of them, that's something that me and Justin had agreed on would be okay for me to do on pull 2. And then yesterday I got off to a bad start. I got 6 with 405. 405 free weight is about 425 Smith weight. So I still considered a PR, and I get that 3 times in a row, but I wanted 7. So I think one of those 3 PR clusters where I wanted, if I only got 6 and I didn't get 7, I was going to try to get 6 3 times. And I got 7 the second set. And I got 5, rest pause 2, rest pause 1. Is that kind of what you're talking about with this 3 PR cluster set?
And that's sort of almost getting into phase 3 too, because phase 3 also has where you'll continue a set for as many, or continue an exercise for as many sets as you're able to get the same number of reps as the options all.
Okay. So that's kind of almost like an RPE type training where you've got. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and everyone knows that it's, what builds muscle in training is fairly well known. You need to get strong, but there's more to it. Otherwise, powerlifters would all be Mr. Olympia. And so what we've really done, tried to organize that and give clear, definite metrics to gauge the progress on those, rather than just going in and say, I'd like to get stronger and I'd like to get, rounder, but how do I know that I'm continually tracking forward in that?
Right. Yeah, I did a little bit of the RPE type stuff last summer as I was coming off of that original rotator cuff tear, and I kind of used that as an injury matrix for bench press and stuff. Using RPE, so I wasn't pushing because I didn't like every day. You don't feel good, like you said. I would go in and it was chest day every 5 or 6 days or whatever, and it didn't feel the greatest. This is not going to be a PR day. But if I'm feeling good, I'm going to push for an RPE 8. And if I can get 8, if I can get 3 sets of 8, then I probably need to do a 4th set. And that's where I'm going to maybe up the weight a little bit and try to go for 6, or I'll just push it until I can absolutely not push anymore. But then there's other times where my 8 might be with like 20 or 30 pounds less because that's just not a good day and I'm not going to hurt myself. And it works fine. I've been still kind of doing the same thing now as in contest prep. I'm starting to get back into doing that a little bit more so that I don't fuck myself up like I tend to do.
Find the club.
Yeah. My shoulders are all sorts of fucked up. I can't even hit a rear double bicep right now because they won't rotate backwards enough. It looks stupid. So we're going to need to get some deep tissue work done as soon as things actually open back up, just so I can move. All right. So how much is the site for the myoplastic, so people know?
$69 a month, which sounds high, but people are paying $79 for my training programs already, and $250 a month for diet plans. This isn't as customized, but you get the training program and the diet plan, and then access to a full member site on top of that.
Sure.
And if you're a student or law enforcement or first responder, I think it's $39.
Yeah.
For those
And so if you're a student, a law enforcement officer, or in the military, and honestly, with everything going on right now, if you're an essential worker, we're more than welcome to honor this as well. If you use the discount code STUDENT, all capital letters, it's $35 a month. Yeah, $35 a month. It's a pretty 45%. Yeah, so for all the people out there stuck working and not happy that they're doing it, go ahead and use that discount as well. Student, all capital letters.
Is there content on there like training logs and stuff like Muscle Mentor has, where you've got all the same kind of stuff? Okay.
Yeah, and probably I'll be working to move all the contributors of Muscle Mentor to Myoplasmic actually, and to keep the training log growing. We're kind of in the process of doing that.
No, let me know so I know where to send my stuff to. I haven't posted in a while, but I just been busy with others trying to get other things around right now. But
it all with Muscle Mentor. It was putting in Myoplasmic now.
That's where I know your name from. Justin mentioned you were doing the podcast. I was like, I know that name. How do I know it? And Justin's like, yeah, he's a Michigan bodybuilder. There's no reason for me to know Michigan bodybuilder. I don't know anybody in bodybuilding. So it's like, but I've read your logs on Muscle Mentor. So
yeah. Well, a couple of years ago, I was posting pretty much daily. And then I did some off season. I did some different logs and stuff. And I think I wrote one article on progressive overload, changing progressive overload. And it was more RPE based and using some sarcoplasmic expansion stuff. So it's probably along the lines of your phase 3. And then I haven't had the opportunity yet. I'm so busy with this bullshit. Now I'm off work, so I can probably write articles all day long. I probably should start doing that again.
That's the problem. Now that I know
it's depressing to have all that time.
Yeah.
Oh. And I'm not used to having a lot of time. So for me, it's like I don't have time, but then I look at it and I'm like, you didn't get out of fucking bed till 9 o'clock. You know, then you do your cardio and I eat. And then I've got like 4 or 5 hours where I don't have to do anything but cook and eat food and play video games or watch TV. So honestly, I have all sorts of time to do shit because I don't train till 5 o'clock. So
I'm much less efficient with my time when I'm not busy.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So much stressful in and of itself because it's like you feel like I need to be making good use of this time, and it's like, but I want to be making good use of this time in other ways. So
right.
Oh.
All right, Todd, do you have some questions?
Well, I was wondering if you guys are interested in me checking in with Justin while we're doing the podcast, so that people who might think of hiring Justin would see how his coaching style is, or would you just in general, how that kind of process works. I know that might be boring. You think it's a good idea? I thought it was a great idea to do it public. All right, cool. So, because I think a lot of people are going to be struggling with this time period of quarantine, and I know it throws me off my game. I know a lot of people are probably very rigid, like engineers, soldiers, people who are used to doing a certain way at the certain gym with a certain equipment, and everything's out the window when you have to do it in a quarantine. So I'm usually pretty self-sufficient, but I find myself drowning this quarantine. And because I'm prepping for the USA, for background for people who are watching this for the first time. And when this quarantine started, I was at 210 and I was pretty much the same strength. And because of the quarantine, you know, there's certain resources that are diminished, as many of you have. So I wanted to reduce some things. So I reduced my GH, and my plan was to go GH every other day and insulin on the opposite day. So on a high day, I use insulin. On a low day, I use GH. And then the plan was to alternate lifting. So I lift every other day. So it's like an off day with GH and a lift day with gear and insulin. And the idea was to go 500 carbs on the off day and 750 carbs on an on day, so that I'm having more carbs on the insulin day. It's common sense. All this seems to make a lot of sense. It doesn't work that way for some reason. And it's not working because I can't eat the 750 carbs on the lift day. But I have enough time and enough appetite to eat on the off day. And what I found was I cut out what I was doing to get in extra carbs is I was eating Crispix cereal, I was eating gummy bears, and I was eating York peppermint patties in between every meal, just constantly, to try to jack up the food intake to get my calories high enough to keep weight stable at 210. Now, since all these changes were made around the same time, I cut out the York peppermint patties, I cut out the gummy bears, I cut out the Crispix cereal, and I decreased the GH to every other day, and I decreased the gear. I was running 1,400 deca, and I decreased it to 1,000 deca. I don't run test for those of you who are watching for the first time. Deca is my test. My body produces 500 natural tests despite being on 1,000 deca. So it doesn't make any sense. We don't understand it. Don't do this at home, kids. I'm just a freak. Just like my metabolism, it doesn't make any sense. So what I'm running into is I'm eating more food on the off day than I am on the on day. So the question I'm thinking is, should we switch the days? So I'm doing GH on the lift day and the insulin on the off day as like a reload. I've flattened out like a motherfucker. I'm down to 205. I can't get pumps in my biceps. I can't get pumps in my rear delts. I can't get pumps in my inner chest. I'm not getting pumps in my delts very easily, but I'm still strong as fuck on bent rows and rack pulls. My incline bench just went down pretty dramatically. And my squat, I'm not using a Smith for squats, so I have to reteach myself how to use free weights. I like fell over with 405 because I'm not used to balancing 400 pounds. I went out like a bitch, but I'm handling 315 fine. I'm able to pump up 315 like it's nothing, but 405, it's like a horse with cerebral palsy. It's just all over the place. So Justin's my Obi-Wan, and I'm Princess Leia. You're my only hope, Obi-Wan. Help me.
So to kind of set up what we've done, we started with a traditional three-way approach with Todd months ago. Low days on off days, medium training days, and high days a couple. Problem is Todd has a really, really high metabolism, especially for his body mass. And so we quickly ran to the point where his food volume was just almost impossibly high. And so we switched to a two-way rotation, which is high days on training days, low days on off. As you heard, even his low days are still 500 grams of carbs.
Right.
And so, and also to kind of get everyone up to date, at his last check-in, his lower back tightened up. He looked like he dropped some body fat with the weight loss, but his upper chest and shoulders were quite a bit flatter than we were used to seeing. And so, as far as what I would do, honestly, what I would do, and people are probably going to disagree with this or not like it, and I would combine the GH and the insulin both on training days. Okay. And I know people like mixing the two, but I just think that because the GH is going to increase sodium reabsorption in the kidneys, you're going to sodium retention, and then the insulin does the same thing. The problem is that insulin's kind of a mild diuretic, so insulin increases sodium reabsorption, but it's also mild diuretic, which is probably why you're running into flatness. Most people aren't going to notice that because most people don't flatten out or have the metabolism you do. Someone like me,
he does. Right,
or someone like you, Keith, I know your metabolism. You're going to have the opposite. Insulin, and you can take your insulin with GH, and you're going to get pumped like crazy. Todd burns through everything. But I think combining the GH and the insulin, and I don't think you're going to have any negative effect with the GH. I know a lot of people don't like to combine it, but I disagree with that. And I think that's going to give you an overload of sodium, an overload of water retention that's going to overcome what you're getting from the diuresis from the insulin.
So what I have been doing is I was doing 4 units every morning, and on the GH days I was using 4 units at night. So I'm still using the GH in the morning, and then I'd eat like something like a large pizza for breakfast to try to get some calories in. And then I would go to the gym, and I would fucking still flatten out and cramp after about 3 hours of lifting, despite drinking like 100 grams of sugar and shooting insulin while I'm lifting. While I'm in between sets, I'll shoot insulin to make sure I'm driving it in there, and I will burn it out. I'll lose the pump. I'll go flat. I'll go hypo while I'm still there. I don't know what the fuck to do. Like,
I would be 350 pounds if I did that, and it would be all fat.
That's tricky. He's got a crazy metabolism. He burns through everything.
Oh, I know.
We've even used added fat on his high days. I think we have, or at least medium days.
That's why I'm having the pizza to get the ball started on a high carb day with insulin.
Have you tried, and this is just, I mean, I know you had Dominic do this at one point on his high days too to help get some of the carbs in, but have you tried using on those 750 gram days, just drinking like apple juice and counting that towards some of your fucking like fluid intake so you get the sugar from it?
50% of his carbs in every meal can be pure sugar. Yeah, you could drink it. You can use juice. You can use fruit, whatever, candy, whatever he wants, as long as it's low fat.
I think My thinking was because it's contest prep time and we've got a show in 16 weeks. What I did is I cut out my gummy bears, I cut out my York peppermint patties. So I was having only starches. And I think that's without the sugar, I'm fucked. And
Yeah,
that's,
you
I
need
think,
you
what
need the
happened.
sugar. You need the sugar just for your metabolism. It's just going to keep everything going.
I got some gummy bears. So that if I was going hypo when we started, that's why I pounded that sushi, as I was shaking, sweating, dizzy. I could barely stand up straight. And so I was like, let's bring all my toys with me to play. And I've got an army of food right here in case I start conking out.
Question about your training, because you said all this kind of started when the quarantine started. You know, start training in a home gym. Is that right?
Well, it did start with the quarantine, but also quarantine kicked in right when contest prep started too.
Right. Yeah. But so you went basically from a fully equipped gym with machines and everything to just free weights. Is that correct? And you also mentioned that you would. Sorry.
This gym is a full gym in a basement. I carry in leg press sled, Magnum leg extension, Magnum leg curls, reverse hyper, adductor machine, calf machine, hack squat, and everything you'd want for upper body. Pec deck, table crossovers.
Oh, there is cables and stuff? Because there's no Smith machine.
That's the only thing he doesn't have is a Smith machine, because only pussies use Smith machine is the rumor. And I am the world's biggest pussy because I love Smith machines. So I'm relearning all my barbell lifts again.
That's what I'm to touch on is because I find the same thing is I have the hardest time getting an upper body pump with free weight movements compared with a Smith machine. And my theory is that it's because those stabilizer muscles are working so much harder when you're doing a bench press or an incline press or something like that, that you're really shifting emphasis away from the primary movers in such a way that makes it very difficult to get a pump, even if you're doing super high rep sets. And what I've found has been very successful for me to kind of replicate a Smith machine without one is using very light reverse bands. The reverse bands are going to pull the bar in a straight line for you. So it's not exactly the same, but it will keep you in the groove, very similar to what a Smith machine does. Yep. And for me, that is a significant difference, even though you're only taking off maybe 20 pounds at the bottom of your movements.
Right.
Which
so I'll start that right away. In fact, Justin turned me on to reverse bands for the Smith. Now it's just going to be free weights. And I happened to buy the Mountain Dog pack the day that they sold out, because even though I'm not using my home I still have a pull-up bar, bands, and dumbbells here in emergencies in case something happened to the other full gym. So I'll start implementing the reverse bands on the barbell stuff. I agree with the biceps, the rear delts. It's because I'm a baby and I'm used to machines to where I can isolate. It's really helped. And then now that I'm using free weights, too many other accessory muscles are kicking in and fatiguing before the primary muscles are actually the ones that are getting fatigued.
Yeah.
It's not even about being right? It's just like we were talking about this thing. You can't do it. It's like you're gonna fuck up your joints if you try and go serious on biceps with free weights.
That's the biggest thing from this quarantine is I'm stuck with my basement with just pure barbell free weights, not even dumbbells. And I have never been so beat up as I have been this last month. It's remarkable. Ruined.
Yeah. There's something to that with the. Oh, go ahead.
I'm a majority free weight guy, anyways.
Right.
And so just the only thing I would use machines for would be, maybe a cable crossover or some, biceps, triceps. But even that is as moving all those to free weights is just completely, the stress on my joints is tenfold.
Yeah. I noticed the same thing, Ben, with you said with the machine movements and stuff. When I was at Westside Fitness and I had a hammer strength press or I had a Smith machine to use for incline barbell press, the pump that I would get was way more than what I'm using right now by just doing free barbell incline bench press and doing barbell bench flat bench press. I don't get the same pump. It takes a lot more reps and sets to get that same pump that I could get with 8 to 10 rep sets on a hammer strength, especially when I can do a hammer strength and I can put bands on the hammer strength. I can put 3 plates and 2 bands on there and get the variable tension on that. I can make the move as hard as I want. And again, those stabilizers, like you said, don't come into play. So it's just pecs. That's it. You're getting pecs and a little bit of triceps. I'm not getting my core isn't coming into play. My lats really aren't coming into play as stabilizers because I'm just sitting on a bench. I'm not laying back on it and having to stabilize gravity.
I will say there's a huge improvement in stabilizers in just these past 3 weeks. That I've got a video of me doing 275 for my last chest workout and 275 for this chest workout, and it looks like I had cerebral palsy on the first one, and I look smooth as a smith on this one. Yeah, I was actually going to make a video of that for people to see how fast the stabilizers will catch back up from using free weights. But You're right, the pump's for shit, and I'm not able to handle as much weight because I think I'm losing a ton of power trying to stabilize on a rickety bench with a barbell versus
also with your metabolism. I bet we need to adjust your calorie intake because I bet you're burning through a couple hundred calories more than you were previously with the training, doing the same movements just from those stabilizers. I wouldn't say most people. I don't think for most people it'd be that big of a difference, but with your metabolism, I would say it's enough of a difference where it's the difference between flattening out and not flattening out for sure.
Yep.
So despite me being 14 weeks up, you're suggesting 14 weeks out, you're suggesting that we increase the food. And it's good that I put the sugar back in today.
Yes. Well, because your lower back, we leaned out quite a bit in the last update and we went past the point of leaning out and where the drop in body weight was more than a drop in body fat. It was a drop in fullness because your chest and shoulders were noticeably fatter. So, and we're 14 weeks out. You're someone who stays lean, full set of abs, no lower back fat in the middle of the off season. So we don't need 14 weeks of hard dieting. I would rather have 10 weeks of hard dieting and have you full glycogen stores full, muscles round, and appetite suppressed at the 10-week mark, so we could hammer it down then.
Right. Perfect. Okay, because I feel guilty as fuck because I'm used to 20-week preps.
I don't even know why you do that. You can get ready in 6.
Because it's harder, and the person who suffers more wins.
Yeah, and if you
just make it as hard as possible.
So then do a 6-week prep as hard as fucking possible.
2011 Nationals, I prepped for 20 weeks to lose 2 pounds, just because I wanted to have the thinnest skin that ever was recorded. It looked like a fucking velociraptor in my ass. It was like this, cat whiskers all the way to the inside. It didn't even meet in the middle. It looked like something out of a Jurassic era.
He can get ready, Justin, in 8 or 9 weeks and be fucking shredded, and it takes me forever. Fuck him.
Never been a problem with you. I think it's, the thing holding you. I think we talked. You're showing at the Michigan, I think, proved you were definitely ready to make a run at a pro card, and it's just a little extra size and the same conditioning. So we're not looking to improve conditioning. We're looking to come in fuller with the same conditioning. And the conditioning you had in a week out, I think, like we talked about, I think you flattened out a little bit in that final week, but that conditioning at a week out with better fullness, that puts you in the running. And so we don't need 20 weeks to get better conditioning because we already have the conditioning. We need the same conditioning with better fullness. So.
Yep. Yeah, especially on the national stage, because the national pro qualifiers, they're not necessarily they want conditioning, but they want that fullness. You can come in with all the conditioning you want and be flat as fuck, and you're going to end up out of the top 5. You've got to have that round.
Especially the USC. Yeah, the USA fullness beats conditioning. It's the weirdest show. Yeah, and I've been to that USA and got my ass stomped. I know. So to clarify,
USA is my favorite show. That's why I always try to get my guys to do the USAs.
So the 8 and 4, is that the right way? But we want to then put the 8 on the high carb and lift days, and the 4.
That's what I would. That's what I would do. And I think within 4 days, two days of the training days, I think we should notice the difference. If you haven't noticed the difference in fullness by then, we'll regroup. But I think that's definitely the way to go.
And then the other question is. You'll take care of the increase in carbs at a different time. But are we okay with the 1 on, 1 off? So push off, pull off, legs off, repeat? Or do we want to start putting in shoulders and arm days?
I think we will when we get into what I would say official prep around the 10-week mark. Okay. Until then, stay with this.
Yeah, stay with power building. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's the best. And with your growth this offseason, I think we showed that. I think less frequent is the best way to grow, unless you have ungodly recovery, which most people don't. But once you get into contest prep and it turns into a calorie issue where you're trying to burn calories and you're trying to really hit each individual muscle group, you kind of almost have to transition to a bro split.
Man, my arms are down 0.3 inches, and it's freaking me out. So that's why I just wanted to confess that I'm not handling this very well. I'm able to wear my belt on the 2 holes, but my arms are down of 0.2 to 0.4 inches. It's freaking me out, man.
They'll be up 0.4 inches by the 3rd day of the GH and insulin combined with the sugar.
Yeah. And, you know, you mentioned with the every other day training and the powerlifting split for something like that for him, especially for somebody like him. And I've tried telling him this in the past, that he trains too often before because he burns all his fucking calories up. He's got such a fast metabolism. All he's doing is burning those calories up, and his body can never grow because you're training to break down muscle fibers so that it can repair and grow. And if you never have enough calories present for it to grow, you're not going to.
Well, I say, look at what are we doing with the training? We're creating a stimulus for growth, right? And then at that point, it's up to us to dial in the diet to maximize the stimulus,
right?
And if you have someone who the issue is always getting enough calories because your metabolism is so high, you have to look at it as then I can't eat anymore. I can't increase the diet. I can't cover more training with the diet because I've already maxed out with the diet. The only way to do is to decrease the calorie dump from the training.
Yep. So
it was hard to do because I felt like a biggest fucking pussy ever to decrease frequency and volume just to get a relative calorie surplus. Because I'm the opposite. I want to train 4 hours a day, 7 days a week, because I want to do the most I possibly can and to eat the least amount of food without killing people. But I'm doing the complete opposite. And it's really, you just feel like the laziest slob ever because all I did for a year was watch Netflix. And I learned a lot about nothing. I know a lot about space travel and teleportation and time travel and how to smuggle drugs. I watched every narco smuggling thing I've under the sun, but it's what it took to put on 20 pounds.
Bodybuilders of all time had a reputation of being relatively lazy. And so lazy in bodybuilding is usually not a bad thing when progress is involved.
Right. Especially when it comes to growing.
Yeah.
Because you need to recover, you need to rest in order to grow. And if you're not doing that, then it's not gonna work. It's counterproductive. Ben, you said you're in the middle of contest prep?
What's that?
Ben, you said you're in the middle of contest prep now, correct?
Well, he was. We were about to start. Okay. Yeah, he was going to do junior nationals and USA's. I'll let you go with it.
Yeah, so the plan was to do junior nationals. I'm assuming that went well. Then maybe we would go and do USA's as well. And then junior nationals got pushed back to like September. And I'm still planning on doing big dogs, which is the end of October, and that's not enough turnaround time. Like you can't diet for a show and then 6 weeks later try and compete with the 270-pound powerlifters who haven't dieted in 10 years, you know. So
or if ever.
So now we're looking at whatever the Michigan show is.
We might do the Michigan. He's never done a bodybuilding show. He's done classic. No way he's making classic right now at 260 lean. No. But it's transitioned to bodybuilding. We might do the Michigan June 27th. They just moved it to, which is basically the weekend of the junior nationals, which would let us know where he stands. I know he's ready for the USA's. He's not, he's new to bodybuilding, but you don't become a world record holder, an all-time world record holder in any strength sport without putting years in the game. And so he's got the size and thickness. We had some refining to do over the last year to turn it into a bodybuilding physique, but he's ready for the USA's. So I think mentally jumping in, you're used to competing at a really high level and being successful at a high level. It's hard to have that confidence in a new sport. So hopefully the Michigan will show him that he does belong at that level.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm doing the Michigan, and then a week later is the Universe. I'm doing the Universe the next week.
That's so cool that if Ben's doing the USA, then we're doing it together. And that means Justin can come and hold our hands and make sure we don't spill over in the hotel room.
I left Eton. I left my engineering job to work like an idiot. I left it 2 weeks before I would have got to go home and get paid to stay home. But I made the move to make this to be at my guys' shows more often. And this is what I'm doing full time now. So yeah, I plan to be at the USA's.
Cool.
Because it really does help to have a coach in the hotel room with you, to like look at your skin in person and determine if it's a quarter diazide or a half a diazide. And it's so stressful when you just are just winging it.
Well, that's it. And I feel 100% confident with photos and videos, and I've used it, and I do that far more than I do in person. But I can't transfer that confidence to the person, and the person is always much more confident when they're there in person. So I understand that.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yep. It's like a trust fall at the office.
Yeah.
The human resources department, and then it's like getting a trust fall with a telemonitor. Yeah. It's just like, nah, you ain't catching me. It's like
a trust fall. An interpretive dance class I had to take in college. Way too much. The dance theory girls that had to catch me did not hold it up.
Oh, just have them stack up like a mattress, and they'll just break your fall.
What happened? I just fell on them and they collapsed. But
so you said you're basically just coaching full time now? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Back to doing that again?
Yeah. Went back, got a master's degree in physics, so I could work as an engineer for 5 years. Pretty cool. I kind of, my wife, I have a 5-year rule. I do everything for 5 years and then quit. So I did grad school for 5 years. I coached for 5 years before that. I did bodybuilding for 5 years. I played football for 5 years. I was an engineer for 5 years, and the only thing that stuck around was my wife. But she's been there longer than 5 years. I mean, I only loved her for 5 years, but.
That's like the hardest thing ever to me. Is like that's the most impressive thing is that you have a functional marriage for this long. It's not a dig against you. It's just like in this culture, you just don't see that.
Yeah,
you don't see people.
Well, we kind of grew up.
I'm living.
We
grew up.
We met as kids, basically. She wasn't even legal drinking age. We were, kids in college, so we lucked out. We grew up together, and so I think we kind of formed a team almost. I worked while she went to dental school through med school, and then she worked while I went to grad school, and we've kind of started from nothing. 2 kids who couldn't even buy alcohol to building a family. So I think that we got lucky, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
How many clients do you actually have now? Then you had an increase since you decided to do a full time, or?
Yeah, I prepared for a full year for this. So I really increased my client workload. It's better now, but I was trying to save up, and so there was a while over kind of this last summer and fall where I was just working like too many hours. That's all I did.
Right.
And so, but it's backed off. It's a good. I mean, it's a full list. It's much fuller than I used to keep when I worked full time, but not as high as my absolute worst. And I have 8 extra hours a day to do it. So this is really it's like this is the first time in my life I haven't had 2 jobs. I mean, first time in my adult life. When we first got married, I was an exercise physiologist and I bounced on the weekends. And then when I started coaching people, I did echocardiograms and bounced and coached. Then echoes and coaching, then engineering and coaching. This is the first time where it's just one job, so I'm in heaven. Hopefully, because I have more time to devote for my clients, and so we got a big year. We have 2 potential pro cards at USA's. Ricky Varney is a potential pro card client in the UK.
Yep.
So hopefully, it ends up being a big year for me. So for us, I guess, we're being the clients.
Right. Yeah, that sounds great. Now, I was curious about that because I texted you a few weeks ago about coming down to train before everything, and you were like, "Yeah, I can do any time during the afternoon." I'm like, "Fuck, aren't you at work?" And I didn't even bother to ask if you were working, but that explains why now.
I left exactly 2 weeks before quarantine would have sent me home anyways, only getting paid. So.
Right. That's crazy.
Does that mean if Ben is in town for good, that when we come and train with you, we can train with Ben too, the world famous Ben Pollack? Is that something that could actually happen?
Well, you got to call me first so I know, so I can show up too, because I'm like 10 minutes down the road.
I know. I always call you.
Yeah.
We got a nice little group going here in Michigan. I mean, Dom's not in West Michigan now, but Michigan's got some solid bodybuilding right now, I think.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is we need to all get together and do some videos, some training videos with all of us together. That would be a good idea.
What's funny is Luke Luke was our episode 64. I think you're episode 66. Did you happen to watch that?
Parts of it, yeah. Yes, that was it's all linked on Facebook. I love Luke. He's a riot.
Yeah, he's
you came up quite a bit, and he has very, very high positive things to say about you and stuff like that. So
Luke, he was I love working with him. Got working with Luke for free again. He was that much fun. He's wish we could have nailed the Arnold we did together a little more, but man, that guy added size. He turned pro 244, 278 a day before the Arnold, and that was like 9 months after turning pro. I should say I've never seen anyone add size like that because Ben's added it a little faster. But until then, it was like every week he'd check in. That dude is just, there's no way he's got a milestone deficiency or something.
Yeah.
But,
well, Dominic put on a bunch of size too in the first year that you had him too. He put on like 30 pounds or more in that 1 year.
From middleweight to light heavyweight to a heavyweight in less than 2 years.
Yeah.
Weight class a year.
Yeah, and you probably could have, if you wanted him to be a heavyweight and didn't want to pull him down as far, he probably could have been a heavyweight that first year because he was right on the borderline.
We suffered to get down to light heavyweight. Yeah.
Well, to put in perspective, it took me from 2014 to 2019 to get from 193 to 203. And then with Justin in 1 year, I got up to 213.
Yeah.
We're talking peak off season. So, right. I mean, I am the worst at gaining muscle. I'm fucking horrible at it. And I put on 10 pounds in 1 year with Justin. That would be like a normal person putting on 50 pounds.
Right. Yeah.
Plus, I added, I think, 100 pounds to my bent row, added, I think, 100 pounds to my squat, added, I think, 30 pounds to my bench or something like that. I mean, it ain't flubber. It definitely was muscle that was added.
Well, I think it's not rocket surgery. I mean, I think we've kind of discussed, what have we talked about here? I can't eat any more food. I've added 100 pounds to these basic core lifts. Ben's eating his,
Your two clients are eating.
Yeah, it's not rocket, sushi, talking, it's meat and rice and chips, but it's meat and rice and get strong as hell in the basic core movement.
Right.
You fine tune after that, but you're not going to find a guy rowing 400 pounds for reps who's got a shitty back. You're just not. You're not going to find an 800-pound deadlifter that doesn't have thick traps. You're not going to, legs are a little bit different because you can find some heavy squatters who just tweak their form right. But for the most part, you're not going to find guys lifting heavy weight and bodybuilding movements, eating a ton of food who are small.
Let me ask you this, though. I've seen some really small legs on some great squatters, but I haven't seen small legs on dudes who do 900-pound leg presses for 30 reps.
Well, I think because the best way to become an efficient squatter for most people, and Ben's one of the few people who is a quad squatter, but for me, I can get much stronger on the squat, and actually the way for me to get stronger on the squat is to use my quads pretty minimally. Is to spread the load on my abs, my hamstrings, my glutes, my lower back, put the bar lower on my back, widen my stance, and turn it really into a posterior chain movement as opposed to a quad movement. That's what happens with squatters. And I think if you look at powerlifters, all they're doing is moving weight, as much weight as possible through motion in a lift that has to follow basic rules. And so powerlifters almost always have great chests and great backs. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is that the only way to get stronger on the bench, your triceps and shoulders are movers in the bench, but they're weaker than the chest. So typically the way to get maximally strong in the best is a form that optimally uses your largest muscle, which is the chest. The way to get strongest on the deadlift, the hamstrings work in the deadlifts also, glutes work in the deadlift also, but the way to lift maximal weight in a deadlift is to not do a stiff leg deadlift, it's to do a deadlift with a form that puts the maximal load on your mid back, throughout your back. So getting strong in bench and strong in deadlift almost forces you to use the right muscles. That's not the case with squat, because for a lot of people, the way to get strong in squat is to use left quads.
Yeah, I've always thought that with a heavy squatting like that, and I think we've talked about this before, Justin, is that some people just have so much fucking strength in their hips that they actually blow out of the hole so hard and so fast that their quads never even activate, and they don't activate till they've hit 45-degree angle with their knees. And then actually you get a little bit of quad activation. It's just inertia and it's momentum coming out of the bottom.
And when I was squatting really good, that's how I knew I was in the groove. Is I would at the bottom, it would feel like my hips were trying to get pulled out of their socket, and it was almost like tendon, flexibility that was just slamming them back in and shooting me out of the hole.
Right.
I always like to pause at the bottom for that.
Well,
reason.
I also think too that with the quads and stuff, that I think higher rep training than, the 6 to 8 reps for squats and stuff, you're not going to maximally build quads. I don't think that way. I think getting in the 10, 12 rep range and stuff, and in some cases, like Todd, you said 30 reps on a leg press like that's where you're really going to tap into those quad stores and really start beating them up and actually activating them. I think it's a higher rep muscle as far as I'm concerned.
Definitely. High volume muscle too for most people. I think the problem too is most people don't have, and I don't want to say no one does. I just think most people, and I'm not even saying I'm one of the other people. I agree with this. Most people don't have the mental fortitude to do squats as a bodybuilding movement, because the kind of weight you have to do to keep the tension on the quads and the amount of reps and volume you have to do for squat is brutal. And for me, typically my lungs or my mental capacity fails before my quads would. So I think for most people for legs, the best approach is a higher volume approach. I say this with sitting next to one of the few people who can do the opposite, because Ben can put all the target on his quads. Right. But for most people, it's more like the way legs. Lots of different sets, a lot of variety, a lot of volume.
And I'm sitting here, Justin, saying that it's like, it just sucks. I'm just thinking, that sounds so boring. It's like I just want to max out.
Yeah. Well, so, I think it has to do a lot with structure too. If you're with your hip width and everything else, if you've got more of a narrow hip, you're not going to be able to handle the load on the hips and the glutes as much as you will, and the quads are going to have to take some of that stress. Yeah. It also does with the flexibility in the ankles too, and being able to get down far enough to where your knees can go past your toes enough to actually get a stretch in the quad at the bottom, so that it activates that much harder coming up out of the hole.
So I guess I kind of
go ahead.
I was going to ask Ben a question about that. My feeling, and I don't think this is right, is so I know that doing all sets of 20 the whole workout is what is supposed to be the best way to do it. That's like the Tom Platz way. But I feel like doing heavy for sets of 6 to 10 on the squats is more reasonable, because at least there's one power barbell movement in each leg workout. Otherwise, you would never build any strength. How do you feel about that?
I'll let Ben answer, but that is how. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I think that when you're trying to train progressively, if you're consistently dealing with the 20+ rep ranges, you're not really periodizing your training at all. And there's too strong a body of evidence to say that anything other than periodization is the way to go. No matter what training method you follow, at some point there's going to be some element of periodization in there. And so I think you have to have some type of thing. It doesn't even have to be a squat, to be honest with you, but you have to have some type of movement. You're working at a lower rep range if you want to make any progress in the long term.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where it's a growth protocol. We have that built in, where we have sets which are pure myofibrillar sets where we're doing 5 to 9 reps on squat, and then 10 to 12 reps, and then we have other sets where we're using the same movement, a squat, as a sarcoplasmic set, where we would do like a superset with leg extensions, high rep leg extensions immediately into a higher rep squat.
Right.
But the problem is like what I had today, right? Is so I put my heavy squats early up in my workout. Well, afterwards I'm so fried. I get through one working set of leg press, and I'm feeling sick to my stomach. I even pass out. Right. And so I think you're doing that high rep stuff first, and then the heavier stuff when you're saving to the end where you can be torched, and it doesn't matter. But fortunately, my do grow from just the squatting, so I can get away with that.
Right.
I did the exact same thing for the first 3 months with the critical mass, and my knees were just fucking murdered. And then we went to 20 reps, and for December, we went to 20 reps and chilled them the fuck out. And then when I came back to it, I had put the squats for 20 reps after the leg press. So I would do calves, hamstrings, quads, 7 sets of 20, 7 sets of 20, 7 sets of 20, leg press, 7 sets of 20. Then I would go squats one set is 6 to 8. And I ended up gaining 50 pounds on my squat, even though it was after the leg press. And I feel like it's because my knees didn't hurt, so I wasn't a pussy about it, or it's because I properly activated them. But I totally agree. After that set of squats with 455 pounds or whatever, I was totally fried and I didn't want to do anything after that. And for years, I used to do that first because I had the powerlifting mindset. I want to do the priority movement at the beginning of the workout. Bench, squat, deadlift should always be first, but I was always fried afterward. So
that is the best approach, the heavy priority movement early on. But the problem is, and this is why it's hard to make general training programs, and why you really need to change things, and have the programs need to grow as you advance. And that an 18-year-old kid or 24-year-old kid who's maxing out at a 400-pound squat, you want that early in the workout. A guy with 20 years of lifting under his belt who's repping out 500 plus pounds on things, that's a different thing. I can't just go in and walk into a squat anymore. So for me, my leg workouts, calves, move to hamstrings. I need a lot of blood flow, a lot of heat through the area before I'm ever getting under a heavy squat bar. Yeah. And that wasn't 20 years ago. No. But as you get more advanced, you change.
Yeah, I'm the same way, where when I was powerlifting, obviously it was squat heavy, and then when I started bodybuilding, I still had that same mentality. And after my quads started growing and I was noticing the growth, I wasn't getting any more growth, and all I was getting was tendon and knee pain. I started pre-exhausting, and I'll do full hamstrings first, get all as much blood in the hamstrings as I possibly can. It also gets my knees moving, so I guess those lubricated. Then I pre-exhaust with leg extensions usually, and a lot of times what I've been doing is leg extensions and supersetting it with Bulgarians to really get blood flow, and then I go squat. Because at that point now everything's activated, everything's moving, and I'm not squatting any lighter than what I normally do.
Yeah. Having full hamstrings almost gives you it's like a little soft cushion too.
Yeah.
It really helps. It's like putting a pad basically between your calf and your leg.
Yep. Yeah, I like squatting with my hamstrings full of blood, because like you said, it's almost like you've got something kind of pushing you up out of the hole there that kind of help. You got anything else there, Todd?
What are your Olympia projections?
Is there going to be one?
More money.
They're gonna either push it or change the qualification and give special invites, or who's in it. I'll tell you. You think Phil's going to be in it again?
No,
I don't think he's doing it. I think you're going to see.
I think it's.
You won't see Phil. You won't see Kai. You won't see Sean Roden.
No, it'll be Flex Lewis versus Brandon Curry versus Hadi Chopin versus William Bonac. That's I think would be the top 4. Maybe Big Ramy.
Yeah. If Ramy could, did you see his pictures the week before the Arnold?
Did you see his pictures this week? He fucked something up at the end.
I think he's too big. He's so big that filling out ruins his separation.
Yes.
Which is what Chad Nichols said.
Yeah, instead of coming in at 280, he needs to be about 260. He really does.
I mean, why fill? He's too big. You fill him up, and all it does is the muscles grow into each other. Right. You see pictures, those pics a week out of the Arnold. It's like, geez, if he could have stepped on stage like that, he didn't even need to dry out from there. He could have just stepped on stage. I'd love to see him like that, and I think potentially he's a top 3 guy. If he looks like that, I don't think it'll happen. But I would really, really, really like to see Flex with 5 more pounds of muscle. I think he beats Curry.
I agree, because I've seen pictures of him when he's 3-4 weeks out. He's 220, 225, and he looks fucking nasty. And then you see him at 212, and he fills back up to like 215 to 220. And he doesn't quite look as good or as crisp. But I think with him at 225 or even 230, if he puts on that 5 pounds of muscle, nobody's going to beat him. He's going to be untouchable. Yeah.
I hope he brings it. And I hope Curry comes in finally with the conditioning that he should have with that new added size, because then it'd finally be an interesting Olympia.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned that with Ramy, when you see those pictures of him a week out and his quads are fully separated and vascular and everything else, and he's got separation between his delts and his biceps, and he's got a split in his biceps and everything else, and it's like, and then you see him on stage and it's like, you have no separation. They're just big. He's got big balloon quads. There's no separation. They're not very vascular. And it's like, what happened?
Yeah, it's almost like we finally reached a point where he's just too big.
Yeah.
And filling up just decreases separation. Just the muscles just growing.
Yeah. And I think that's something you see a lot now where you didn't see 10, 15, 20 years ago. Guys had a lot of deep separation. I don't think there was as big a carb ups as what they're doing now. And the emphasis wasn't on so much fullness.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is, I think the long-term growth hormone. I think growth hormone is an amazing addition to the sport and to your physique for about 10 years. And I think after that, you really, the skin just starts thickening, the joints start thickening, the acromegaly type symptoms come in where you kind of lose the forearms start fading, the arms kind of flatten out, your quads turn turnipy, and your calves flatten out, your waist widens. I want to say like the bubble gut type thing, but just kind of a wider structure that ruins the separation.
They get that turtle shell.
Yeah,
it looks like a turtle shell.
Yeah. Well, I think, and when I say the guys from the 90s had better conditioning, if you're talking body fat, I disagree 100%. Guys are lower body fat than the average one in the 90s. They just lose that separation, I think, because the skin is just so thick. And it happens later in careers, which is why guys come on, burst on the scene, look amazing, hit a few great shows, and then everyone's like, why can't they get in condition? They're in the same condition they were. They've just now reached the point of no return with growth hormone, where you've been blasting for 10 years and your skin's just thickened out so much.
Right. No, that's a good point. Yeah, I think we've talked about that before too. With you said you can kind of see it like on Phil Heath, where Phil Heath first came in and he had this, and then it's all of a sudden like the last 3 years you can see more of that turtle shelling in his waist. His waist started to thicken up, and it wasn't just the hernia. Yeah. It's the wideness of it, and the obliques can get pushed out and stuff.
And it's even more than the wideness. Cutler had a wide waist, but it's the fact that the wideness comes near the hips. And so, you can have a wide waist if you still have a taper. When it starts taking that A-frame below the rib cage, that's when it just ruins everything.
Right. They lose their shape, and
And if you look historically, it's 10 years. You can find any guy that came onto the scene, burst onto the scene, when he finally really put everything into high gear with all the supplements, and then follow him 10 years down the road. You got Ronnie from 98 to 2007, 10 years, boom. Jay Cutler comes 2001. What happens by 2011, 2013? He's falling off.
Right.
Keith Molly, Marcus Rule, any of those guys. 10 years from when they burst onto the scene, it's about that 10-year. That's why I tell guys under 30, don't blast GH year-round. Save it for pre-contest, because you're not in your prime till you're almost 40. And if you've been running 8, 10 IUs of GH a day year-round from the age of 19, by the time you hit your prime, you're already past that 10-year point. And instead of being at your prime, you're fading off.
That's good. Yeah, that's good advice. That's real good advice. Yeah, I mean, when you're 30 years old and stuff, and your hormones are still in a good spot, and you're using gear, and in the off season, you should be able to grow without the growth hormone.
Yeah.
And, you need it for contests, but.
And I understand wanting to grow, and using growth hormone at age 30 will make you a better 30-year-old bodybuilder.
Sure.
Or using it before 30. You're using it at age 25 will make you a better 25-year-old bodybuilder than if you didn't. The problem is, if you want to make a career out of it, your prime money-making years and your prime show-winning years aren't until you're 35. And if you start using that at 25, you'll be a better 25-year-old bodybuilder, but a far worse 35-year-old bodybuilder when you need to be the best.
Right. Well, that makes perfect sense. How much of you do you think it's increased insulin use too is fucked up some of that muscle separation and stuff, or you don't think it's anything to do with that?
I don't really. I think insulin use is way down from what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys are playing with it more as far as Lantus and weird ass things like that. What I remember in the early 2000s, what insulin was, especially for the carb up, was, like 100 IU a day type things. It was people really pushing insulin. And I think around the mid to late 2000s, you really see a drop off. And now, insulin's still useful, but I think it's more useful off season as just another supplement. And I don't think it's as useful at all. And I think it's used far less in the carb up.
Yeah, I'm not using it at all right now for contest prep. I haven't touched it. As soon as we started prep, I pulled the insulin out and I was just using 10 IU's pre-workout. Is all I was using of Novolin R. So it was, it was an hour pre-workout, 10 IU's, get us some carbs in me, some fat, train with intra-workout carbs, heavy hard carb meal with some protein right afterwards. And then as soon as we started contest prep, it came out because it's not really necessary during a prep.
Yeah, no, I think, I think it's less of it. I think what you're seeing now is just what happens with long-term growth hormone use.
Okay.
I think if you want to see what insulin does, when insulin's overused, look at the 96 Olympia. That's the first year guys were really, really, really pushing insulin the last week to carb up, and you'll see the fullest bodybuilders you'll ever see. 96. Seriously, look at some of the photos. Lee Priest looks like he's going to explode. Kevin Levrone looks like he's going to explode. And you can see it's an insulin look. It's not a loss. It's a different loss of separation than it is now with the growth hormone, where I think it's a thick skin loss of separation. Yeah, but if anybody's watching, go online, look at pictures from the 96 Olympia, and you'll see what an insulin physique looks like.
Right, because they were really, really round and bubbly, but they still had all the vascularity. They just didn't have as much separation.
I thought it was a cool look. I mean, I love that.
They look like they look like balloon animals.
Yeah, everyone, it all got dialed in somewhere between 96 and about 2005. And I think those were the peak years, really. Yeah. And now everyone's just kind of trying to recapture that magic. But 96 was, insulin, this is awesome. Let's push it. We're too full. And then somewhere in the late 90s, obviously 98 when Ronnie came along, that's what everyone kind of considered one of the peaks. And that's when they nailed it. It was hard, dry. Growth hormone wasn't thickening the skin yet. Enough insulin was being used where they were full. But bodybuilders could never keep it under control. So we always got to do more and more.
Right. They got to push it. Yep.
So I got a question for Ben. Ben, first time I saw you was in these videos that was on someone else's channel that kind of was a nobody, I think. And you were instructing how to do a deadlift, how to do a squat, how to do a bench. And they were the best, most intelligent descriptions of how to do them ever. Like, I like Alan Thrall. It blew Alan Thrall out of the water. Rip Torn's popular. It blew him out of the water, or whatever. Rip that, whatever his guy name. So do you have things like that super highbrow technical instructional stuff on the myoplasmic site?
That's interesting. I don't, and the reason I don't is because I think the videos you're referring to, probably the Mind Pump guys, which, they have a huge general fitness following for a podcast, which I'm not going to listen to a general fitness podcast like this. That's just me. It's like, I don't need to hear about these women doing resistance band curl. Like, no offense to this, but
right, I know.
Justin gets into, his coaching is kind of like, you lift heavy stuff, you eat chicken and rice. Like, that's the formula to grow. Like, I gave kind of like formula, I think, that can be applied at a high level in terms of technique in those videos. And so redoing them when they're already available for free doesn't really seem like a benefit. So what I did do on the myoplasmic site is kind of try and distill that down into a checklist that people can easily go through right before they train, right? And so that, okay, so yes, I can watch this hour-long video about how to bench press. I can't think about cues for an hour right before I go set up. So here are the top 10 things I need to remember when I'm going to bench. Do I want to bench like a bodybuilder, or do I want to bench like a powerlifter? And how do I change my technique depending on? So that's kind of what's there. Otherwise, like, if you want to get more nuance in that, I really think you have to work with an individual on an individual basis. And you can talk about what we said about squats, right? What Keith mentioned about hip structure, what Justin mentioned about people who squat with their posterior chain versus their quads. All that is extremely individual, and I don't think it can be generalized, or I don't think it should be generalized. Because I think that is what, guys like Alan Thrall or a lot of other channels try to do, and that's what people want to hear, is, right? They want to hear there is a right way to do it, and I don't think that exists. I think that the right way to do it is to figure out how your body is going to respond and how you can manipulate your body to respond better in terms of what your goals are.
Right.
I think what's funny you mentioned that, because I was butt sore that I was doing low bar squats, not high bar squats, because I'm trying to get my quads. But when I put the bar on my traps, I just felt in my C7 spinous process. I felt loosey-goose in my core, and I felt knee pain. But when I put the bar low bar, it felt so comfortable, like I was made for this. And then eventually Alan came up with a video that was high bar squat, low bar squat. It doesn't really matter. Do what's comfortable. Yes, it's my fault. I started this. I want to take it back. And so I just, like obviously I'm really lucky because I can actually drive 2 hours and pay you to teach me how to squat better or bench or deadlift better. But other people can't do that. So I think that even if you think those videos were over the head of most people, and they probably are, those to me, I mean, like that's like as good as the Ed Cohen squat video that he did in the Mark Bell show. I mean, those were the best fucking videos I've ever seen on all the big 3 lifts. So I'm not going to say you're not giving yourself enough credit, but you might want to do technical stuff, maybe on other shit, like how to use a hammer strength with bands. Because the way you break shit down with your PhD and your genius level IQ seems obvious to you, but to a normal person, it's not fucking obvious. Like what seems to be like Legos to you is astrophysics to everyone else.
Well, the genius part is not true. It's just I've been doing this stuff for so long. It does seem obvious to me, right? And so it's like, I have a hard time remembering a lot of these people are just starting out, right? Like they've never used a hammer strength machine before. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to try and do a better job.
I think the band training would be really good because I'm sick and tired of seeing people use fucking bands for shit that they should never use bands for. And they're just reinventing all these exercises with bands. And I'm like, what the fuck is the purpose of that?
So the band's not doing it, just hanging out.
The band stays the same tension.
Right. I saw, I'm not even kidding, on Instagram, I saw a girl, I'm sure she was a bikini competitor or something. She had 14 different bands going 13 different directions, and not a fucking one of them was causing any tension in any direction. And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
My favorite is when people hang chains directly from the bar, so that at the bottom of the squat, maybe 5 pounds of chains is on the floor.
Oh man, but it looks so hardcore.
Oh, it does.
It looks so hardcore.
Yeah,
with their socks up to their knees.
I think that a video on proper reverse band setup for most of your common exercises, how to use bands for variable tension, because I've seen too people doing them on leg press, and it's like the fucking band, you get like 2 inches of band tension the way they have it set up. And I'm like, okay, it's a great idea to use a fucking band on the leg press to make it harder as you go up where it normally would be easier than the strength curve. But you're not getting any benefit because the fucking band stretches 2 inches. So unless you're going to do a calf raise at the end of it, you're not getting anything out of it at all. I think stuff like that would be some good instructional video that could be done with band training and stuff for those people, because apparently the use of bands with people, as it gets more popular, and people have seen John Meadows use bands for years, and they've seen they've seen other people that have used bands, and they get these crazy ideas in their head that they're going to do a fucking movement with a band, but it doesn't make any damn sense whatsoever.
See, Meadows take a band in a unique way that's properly applied, and so they just think, well, any new way must be the best way to
the right way to do it, right? Yeah. I use bands for shit. I use it all the time, but most of the time I do it, it's either reverse bands, like on a chest movement right now because of the small pec tear that I have over here on this side. I'll use that to kind of as a safety measure to take some strain off the joint and stuff and off that area. Or I'll use more variable resistance stuff where I hook it up to something so that the move in the strength curve, where it would normally get fucking easier, is still just as hard all the way through. Like I said, with a hammer strength machine, incline hammer strength, wrap the fucking bands, put one band around the post and one band around where the weights are. By the time that thing is stretched all the way out, you've got variable resistance. It's a lot heavier at the top, and I can contract my pecs at that point, and there's no resting point anymore.
I'm like scared of bands. I'm like the natural people are of steroids. That's how I feel about bands. I'm like, that's what the smart powerlifters do. I don't know how to do that. So like when I watch John Meadows things, I'm like, oh, I don't know how to set that up. And it's like, I remember I was with Justin and we're doing Smith bands, and I'm like, I'm shaking. Like, oh my God, I've never used reverse bands on the Smith before. And then I'm like, what do you mean I'm supposed to help? I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And he had to come over and do it like he's my dad. And I'm just like standing there like I'm 10. Like, I don't know what to do. Yeah, just do it for me.
Yeah. All right. You got any more questions, Todd?
I have so many questions. I get to meet Ben Pollack, and all I had was one smart thing to say. It's like, but now that he lives here, we can get him up more often, or train with him and do it live in the gym at Strength Beyond episode.
Yeah, well, I say you're about like 15 minutes from me, so that'll be real easy to get where you're at.
Cool. That's worth a 2-hour drive, no problem. I got this. I'll bring the plague with me. I'll ride my green horse, this pestilence.
Did you see today they extended the fucking order till the 30th now?
30th of what?
April. So
I thought
another 2 weeks.
To April.
Yeah, it was the 13th. It was the 13th, and now she just extended it today till the 30th.
We've had 5 consecutive days below the peak new cases day, and was it the second or third consecutive reduction in daily deaths in the U.S. So hopefully soon.
Well, you know, when you can chalk up a fucking death to whatever you want because you're being told by the government officials to do it, you're never going to get those death tolls down until they're ready to let you fucking do it.
Well, Ben, I don't want to get on this topic because we burned out on it. Plot the numbers. The numbers have been there, and the numbers they're showing everyone was never true exponential growth. And so I modeled data back in like March 20th. I started
before then.
Yeah, it might even. Yeah, I started modeling it right at the very beginning of March. But by maybe the 15th or something, I showed Ben my model, and I said there's going to be 30 to 80,000 deaths, and that's what the data showed, and it never changed, and they just keep bringing the number down, and now they're at 60,000, which is right in, and it's going to be somewhere, but probably closer to 30,000. But it's been 30 to 80,000 since day one. You know, looking at the data, if you model, you know, it's a reliability growth pattern, which is if you do ever worked in reliability and engineering or something, you use the growth of exponential functions, and that's all it is. And it drives me crazy because from day one, even before the quarantine, the numbers followed a particular function. It was like a 4th order function that anyone with Excel could model, and it hasn't varied from that. And it was 30
changed one bit.
No, and even with the quarantine, it hasn't changed. It's followed the same function almost exactly. So it's
but, you know, and I said that today too. I'm like, okay, so we got like 20-some thousand fucking cases in the state of Michigan. I said, so why the fuck are we all staying home? Right. You know, if the point was to stop it, why are we at 20,000 cases if everybody's staying home? How is that actually possible if people are staying home and they're not working?
Well, there's arguments.
It's not.
It's airborne. So, and people have to go out for food, and then they go home and take it to their family who is absolutely going to get it because you're quarantined with them. It's just, I'm not a epidemiologist, I'm not a, you know, virologist or whatever, but, you know, I do know math, and that's what I did for a living was data analysis. Right. And I'll go off on a tangent. I don't want to go on it, but it's going to be crazy.
No, we want to hear it. You're like the smartest person on the planet other than Elon Musk. So your opinion matters.
Elon was getting destroyed on Twitter because back in mid-March, he was saying the same thing. It's because people don't understand exponential growth. Exponential growth in the real world doesn't just grow like e to the x. What they're saying is, you know, one person infects 3, which those people infect 3, but those people infect 3. What you're thinking is that the boundary conditions are such that people interact with the same people. So I infect 3 people, those people infect 3 people, but pretty soon I've already infected some of those other 3 people. We interact with the same people. So pretty soon infected people are infecting infected people, which is a decaying function in the exponential function. So you have the variable in the exponential function is decaying because there isn't an infinite number of people. People interact with the same people. And that's a known thing about real exponential growth. That's not a new thing. And Elon Musk was saying that from early March, is that, you know, people don't understand real world exponential growth. Real world isn't e to the x. X is a variable function. It's that decays over time. And so the data has shown 30 to 80,000 deaths since day one, since before the quarantine, and it's painful that that it's all there and everyone can look at it and anyone can go to any data analysis software and plug it in. And they do that too because they change the numbers from 2 million to 1 to 2 million to 500,000 to 100 to 250,000 to 100,000 to 200,000. Now they're saying 60,000. They're slowly bringing it down to what the data says they want.
Yeah, so I've never seen you that upset before. I loved it. That was fucking awesome. That was so cool. And you know what the funny thing is you talking about this is like Ben with squat, bench, and deadlift. To you, it's fucking obvious. To everyone else, they've got a goddamn nosebleed. So, I mean, that's like nobody knows. I took calculus a couple times. I could follow what you were saying. I couldn't repeat it and make it sound eloquent at all. So it's one of those things where you don't want to talk about it again. But every motherfucker who watches this video just heard it for the first fucking time, and you will have gotten through to him. So it's worth
maybe.
It's maybe. Like so my business partner at Valhalla Labs was like, "Can you please do a video explaining the zinc chloroquine thing?" I'm like, "The president already said it. I don't give a fuck." And he's like, "Nobody listens to that orange twat." He's like, "Nobody gives a fuck what he says. They don't trust him, but they trust you. Just fucking do it." I'm like, "No one's gonna watch that video." And I did it, and instead of getting 10 shares, it got like 200 something shares. I didn't say anything that wasn't fucking obvious to me, but it's like fucking mind blowing to everyone else. Like that in order to get this out of this jar, holy fucking shit. I was just smashing it and then licking it off the counter before that, but you taught me to unscrew it. Oh my God. No, to me, that's how simple the medicine is. That's how simple the powerlifting is. That's how simple the math is. So that's why we got to explain this shit, because motherfuckers are stupid.
Yeah, they are. All right. You got anything else?
Can I throw on one last thing before we
You
go?
can throw in whatever you want.
You can throw out whatever you want, Ben.
It's the Elite FPS Extraction Medium. So I bought this. I don't know how long you've had this. I bought this back in 2007 when I was an undergrad in college because I think they made this shirt for Matt Crocker at the time. But Matt and Justin were the ones who wore it, and I wanted to be as big as Matt and Justin. It took me fucking 13 years to grow into this shirt, and I am pretty proud that I'm podcast with Justin.
That's fucking awesome.
Hysterical. Oh man.
All right.
So, I shared a Smith machine with Matt Crack not too long ago. Right before the quarantine. That's so fucking funny.
Yeah. And then you forgot we had a podcast with him and slept right through it.
Did I sleep through it? I slept through it. I didn't just forget. It was 9 p.m. Bitch is sleeping. It's like, where's Todd? He's getting his beauty rest. It's like 9 fucking p.m. How fucking embarrassing is that? That was like such an important guest too.
It was fine.
Oh man.
Oh, all right. Well, thanks guys for coming on. We'll do it again real soon. And then give me the info, Justin, on putting stuff so I can start posting to the myoplasmic site. Okay.
You should probably send Keith the links to myoplasmic so that we can put it with the YouTube channel so that people can watch this and then sign right the fuck up because you'd be a retard, not take advantage.
Yeah, I'll throw all the links and stuff in the description and stuff so they can just go right to it. They can when they look at it and stuff. All 6 listeners. So.
Well, you know what? Be patient. It takes time. Look at John Meadows. Look at Fuad. Shit takes off. You just got to put a year or 2 into it. Yeah, and that's what you're doing.
So, all right. So, thanks guys for coming on. We'll have you on again for sure.
Sounds good.
All right, man.